Today we've got a packed lineup of topics you won't want to miss. We've got Xbox dropping one of the most tone-deaf price hikes in recent memory, right as the PS5 Pro undercuts them with more power at a cheaper price. GTA 6? Yeah, you better believe it's going to cost at least $80 now, and that's probably just the starting point. Meanwhile, Helldivers 2 is quietly building one of the most dynamic live game narratives out there, with huge changes and possibly a brutal twist on the horizon. But it's not all chaos. PS Plus just dropped a killer lineup for May. Old-school racing legend Ridge Racer is making a comeback. Far Cry 4 just got patched a decade later, and somehow, the GPU market is finally calming down, kinda. And then there's Clair Obscur Expedition 33, a game made by a tiny team that just embarrassed half the AAA industry. Let's get in, get loud, and get dirty with the news. So, here's a little blast from the past that no one really saw coming. Far Cry 4 just got a fresh patch, more than 10 years after it originally launched. Yup, this game first dropped way back in November 2014, hitting everything from PS3 and Xbox 360 to PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And now, in 2025, it's suddenly been updated, just as it landed on Xbox Game Pass on April 30th. If you've ever wanted to ride an elephant into a base or wingsuit off a mountain at a smoother frame rate, this might be your moment. And look, Far Cry 4 had its share of bugs back in the day, sure, but it's still remembered as one of the best in the series. A huge part of that is thanks to Troy Baker's performance as Pagan Min, the stylish, psychotic dictator who totally stole the show. In fact, Polygon even ranked it as their 7th best game of 2014 and called Pagan Min one of the best villains since Joker in Arkham Asylum. That's high praise. What made it special, though, was how confidently it embraced what it was: a chaotic sandbox. You're AJ Gale, dropped into a civil war in Kyrat, and the game, basically, hands you a bag of explosives and says, go nuts. There's no bloated systems or weird half-baked mechanics, just pure open-world freedom. So if you've got Game Pass and a craving for some nostalgic mayhem, now's actually the perfect time to revisit it. The smoother performance makes it feel way more modern than it has any right to. And honestly, wingsuiting off a radio tower into an enemy outpost never really gets old. Alright, so this was unexpected. Microsoft just confirmed they're raising prices across the board for Xbox, and not just by a little. Starting today, the Xbox Series X is jumping up by a full $100 in the US. That means instead of $500, it now costs $600. First time that's happened since the console launched. The Series S is also going up by $80, so the cheaper one with 512 gigabytes of storage now costs $380, and the one with 1 terabyte, that's 1 terabyte, basically double the storage, is going up to $450. Over in Europe, that 512 gig version just got bumped up by £50 or euros, depending on where you live. And yeah, it doesn't stop there. The disc-free version of the Series X, which used to be $450, is now $550. And the high-end model with 2 terabytes of storage, that's 2 whole terabytes, is shooting all the way up to $730. In Europe, that version is now £590 or 700 euros. Even the accessories aren't safe. Controllers are getting price hikes around the world, and if you're in the US or Canada, Xbox headsets are going up too. Game prices, they're staying at $70 for now, but Microsoft says starting this holiday season, new first-party games are going to cost $80. Older games will keep their current price. But from the holidays onward, anything new is going to hit harder. So why are they doing this? Microsoft is blaming market conditions and the rising cost of making games. They admit the change is tough, which is their way of saying, yeah, we know this sucks, but we're doing it anyway. Honestly, it feels like Xbox is pushing deeper into premium pricing territory. The problem is, a lot of people are already feeling priced out. Let's just take a second and really let this sink in. The Xbox Series X 2 terabyte model now costs more than the PlayStation 5 Pro. That's not a joke. That's not a weird bundle deal. That's real. Microsoft is now charging $730 for the 2 terabyte Galaxy Black version of the Series X. Meanwhile, the PS5 Pro, which by every credible leak and benchmark we've seen is nearly twice as powerful, is sitting comfortably at $700. You're literally paying more for less power. And this isn't just about specs. This is happening at a time when Xbox is barely holding on in the console race. We're talking about a platform that, according to most industry trackers, is selling 5 times less less than PlayStation, 5 times. And instead of sweetening the deal or becoming more competitive, Microsoft just made their entire lineup more expensive. Controllers, price hikes, headsets, going up at least in the US and Canada. First-party games, they'll be $80 by the holidays. Meanwhile, Sony's keeping its prices steady, for now anyway. The PS5 Pro is offering stronger performance at a lower price. And if you're a buyer on the fence this year, this move from Microsoft makes that decision a whole lot easier. Look, I get that development costs are rising. Microsoft said these price jumps are due to market conditions and the cost of making games. Fine, but there's a huge difference between adjusting prices strategically and nuking your own platform's value proposition. Right now, it honestly feels like Xbox is betting on Game Pass to carry the entire ecosystem, but even that's feeling shakier than ever. And if you're a gamer just trying to get the best experience for your money, this shift makes Xbox look more like a premium-priced underdog with fewer exclusives and weaker hardware. It's wild to say this out loud, but here we are. The most expensive console in the market is now the weaker one. And speaking of things that leave a bad taste, let's talk about a canceled game that had a ton of potential. This next bit comes from Mike Straw over at Insider Gaming. And just so you know, that site is run by Tom Henderson, who's one of the most reliable leakers out there. So yeah, this report has some serious weight behind it. Apparently, Supermassive Games, the folks behind Until Dawn and The Quarry, were working on a Blade Runner game. It was called Blade Runner: Time to Live, and it was shaping up to be a 10 to 12-hour single-player cinematic story. Think action, philosophy, big ideas, and probably a lot of neon rain. According to the report, the game blended the deep existential themes of Blade Runner with fast-paced action-adventure gameplay. What's wild is that it was targeting a full release in September 2027. That lines up with what could very well be the launch window for the PlayStation 6. I mean, PS5 dropped in 2020, so 7 years later? That timeline makes a lot of sense. Though it's also possible the game would have hit PS6 a bit later down the line. So, what happened? Why was it canceled? Insider Gaming says the issue came from Alcon Entertainment. That's the company that owns the Blade Runner rights. No juicy details on what went wrong between them and Supermassive, but the game was canned late last year, toward the end of 2024. It's a shame. This had the ingredients to be something really special. A proper Blade Runner experience with Supermassive's cinematic chops? Yeah, that's something fans would have shown up for. And just when you thought the price hikes were done, here comes the next bombshell. GTA 6 is almost definitely going to cost $80. At least. At this point, it's basically a done deal. We've now seen both Nintendo and Microsoft push their game prices up to $80. Mario Kart World for the Switch 2? $80. First-party Xbox games this holiday? $80. So, yeah, Rockstar doesn't even have to blink. The groundwork's been laid for them. Let's be real. Rockstar probably wanted to price GTA 6 higher from the start. It's been in development forever, the budget is massive, and the hype is off the charts. But before all this, they might have been a bit cautious about being the first big company to pull the trigger. Imagine the backlash if Rockstar was the first to drop an $80 sticker on a game. It would have been chaos online. But now, everyone else already took the heat. The public's been softened up. So when Rockstar finally reveals that GTA 6 is launching at $80, it's not going to feel like a shocking move. It's just going to be the new normal. And honestly, there's a good chance they're eyeing more than $80. With the kind of demand GTA 6 is generating, they could slap a $90 or even $100 price on the box and still move millions of copies on day one. GTA 6 isn't just a game. It's an event. And Rockstar knows it. Do you really think they're going to let Nintendo charge $80 for Mario Kart and not do the same for Grand Theft Auto? No way. The only question now is how far they're willing to push it. So here's where things get real interesting for Helldivers 2 fans. And if you've been following the story closely, you know this isn't just a bunch of random missions anymore. Unlike your typical campaign, Helldivers 2 doesn't tell its story through cutscenes or chapters. Everything unfolds through the actual galactic war effort, the orders you follow, the battles you fight, and the consequences that ripple through the galaxy. Every major order pushes the narrative forward, whether you succeed or fail. And this past week, things got intense. After weeks of fighting, players finally shut down the Meridian Singularity, a wormhole that was threatening Super Earth itself. We barely pulled it off. The repulsive gravity field generator, which was supposed to solve everything, ended up imploding. Not great, but somehow it worked just enough. The wormhole has stopped expanding, and the Illuminate gone, like completely wiped off the map. But don't get too comfortable, because if Helldivers 2 has taught us anything, it's that this kind of victory usually comes with a twist. Arrowhead even said it. Our mission failed to meet all objectives, but we activated the device anyway. And now, the Illuminate have just vanished? Yeah, that's not the end. That's the setup for something way worse. The text teases that something big is coming, and based on how the last faction disappeared and came back with upgraded forces, this feels like the calm before a brutal storm. There's even a creepy line in one of the last orders, thanking players for delivering millions of voteless corpses, so Super Earth could learn more about mind control, but only for defensive purposes, of course. Totally normal stuff. Nothing to worry about. And here's the kicker. Arrowhead just announced that the next war bond, which includes new weapons, stratagems, and cosmetics, is dropping on May 8th. But they also teased more exciting news coming shortly after. So yeah, if the Illuminate are really gone, it won't be for long. Something big is brewing, and if history's any guide, it's going to hit hard. Let's shift gears and talk PlayStation Plus, because May's lineup is actually kind of wild.
Is a gory, rapid-fire boomer shooter blast from the past!
You wanna be my friend?
Starting May 6th, PS Plus members are getting Ark, Survival Ascended, Balatro, and Warhammer 40,000, Boltgun, and yeah, that's a pretty spicy mix of genres. Let's start with Ark Survival Ascended. This is basically Ark rebuilt from the ground up using Unreal Engine 5. We're talking full-on next-gen treatment, better graphics, improved physics, quality of life updates, the whole package. You're dropped onto a savage island paradise, and your job? Survive. Tame dinosaurs, craft gear, build bases, and try not to get eaten by a raptor. It even comes with all the major expansion worlds bundled in, like Scorched Earth, Genesis, and more. Plus, it supports online multiplayer for up to 70 people, which is absolute chaos in the best way. Then there's Balatro. And don't let the cutesy card art fool you. This game is dangerous. It's a poker-inspired roguelike deck builder, and once you start chasing those insane combos, it's almost impossible to stop. You're stacking illegal poker hands, unlocking hidden decks, triggering wild synergies with Joker cards, and yeah, it gets real fast. It's one of those just one more run games, and you will lose hours to it. And finally, we've got Warhammer 40k Boltgun. If you've ever wished Doom had more skulls and space marines, this is your jam. It's a full-on retro boomer shooter set in the Warhammer universe, all pixelated chaos, chunky guns, and over-the-top carnage. You play a space marine on a galactic kill streak against heretics and demons, and it's every bit as loud, bloody, and satisfying as it sounds. All three games drop on May 6th and will be available until June 2nd. So if you're into survival sims, card strategy crack, or gloriously old-school shooters, this month's got something for you. Oh, and if you haven't grabbed April's games yet, you've got until May 5th. That means there's still time to snag RoboCop, Rogue City, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Digimon Story, Cyber Sleuth. Don't sleep on them. Helldivers 2 has been a breakout hit, no doubt about it. The co-op horde shooter formula is already solid. The live updates keep things feeling fresh, and the community's completely locked in. Naturally, the big question now is what's next? There's been a lot of speculation about a potential fourth enemy faction, and sure, that'd be cool. Something entirely new to shake up the battlefield. But with no official roadmap in sight, there's no guarantee we'll see that anytime soon. And honestly, we might not even need it, because the most exciting idea might already be right in front of us. What if the next big step isn't adding a new faction, but combining the ones we already have? This is something fans have been asking for since the early days. Back when it was just automatons and terminids, imagine dropping into a mission and not just fighting one faction, but two, or even all three. Terminids swarming from one side, automatons laying down suppressive massive fire from another, and illuminate enemies cloaking in between. That's chaos. That's Helldivers at its best. Now, apparently, Arrowhead tested this out before, and the game just couldn't handle it at the time. But the tech has improved, and the player base is clearly hungry for a real challenge. Mashing up enemy types would completely change the way you approach each mission. You'd need to rethink your stratagems, adapt your loadouts on the fly, and communicate like your life depends on it. Because it does. And the potential doesn't stop there. If you really want to push the idea, start blending the factions themselves. Imagine a Terminid Bile Titan with automaton mortars strapped to its back, or a cloaked Illuminate sniper squad protected by robotic armor. That's the kind of nightmare fuel that could make this game legendary. Of course, if you're going to drop players into that kind of hell, there needs to be a proper reward. New player cards, unique titles, maybe even exclusive cosmetics for surviving multi-faction war zones. Something that screams, yeah, I survived that mission. You? At the end of the day, adding a fourth faction would be great, but combining the existing ones could be transformative. Give veteran players a fresh challenge and inject a whole new level of unpredictability into the galactic war effort. And if Arrowhead can pull that off, this game isn't just a hit, it becomes a genre-defining monster.
You know, I'm sorry that... I miss
you don't need to... Okay.
You go.
No, you...
You know how I feel. I wish things had been... You know, I often think... Another path, you know, another future.
Still can't finish your sentences, can you?
Yep, that hasn't changed.
So let's talk about one of the most unexpected hits of the year, Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, a game that, on paper, shouldn't have stood out this much. It launched during a packed window, it dropped on Game Pass, which usually eats into sales, and it was the debut title from a completely new studio. And yet, it sold 1 million copies in just 3 days. And that doesn't even include the number of people playing it through Game Pass. That alone says a lot about word of mouth and how much this game is resonating. But here's where it gets really interesting. Not only is it doing well commercially, it's critically one of the highest rated games of the year. According to Metacritic, it's sitting right at the top. Reviewers and players are all over it. Even big-name developers and industry vets are giving it praise. A lot of people are now pointing to Clair Obscur as proof that turn-based RPGs are far from dead, and maybe even suggesting that Square Enix made a big mistake walking away from that formula with Final Fantasy. There's this specific moment people keep bringing up, the plot twist that actually angered them before the game pulled the curtain back and showed how clever it really was. That kind of emotional gut punch, that kind of payoff, you don't get that unless a team really knows what it's doing. And that's the thing. How did this happen? Because Clair Obscur was developed by Sandfall Interactive, a small team with just 30 core devs. 30, not 300, not 500, 30. Now sure, once you look at the credits, you'll see a bunch of support from other studios, contractors for voice acting, motion capture, music, etc. So in total, maybe 70 to 100 people touched the project in some way. But that's still tiny compared to something like Starfield, which had over 500 devs across multiple studios, not even counting all the outsourcing. And yet, Sandfall made a better game. So now, naturally, people are asking the obvious question, how? How can a small team with limited resources pull off a polished, emotional, content-rich RPG, while massive studios with 10 times the staff and 100 times the budget are putting out games that feel half-baked? Look at Halo Infinite. Remember that one. It was supposed to be the centerpiece of Microsoft's 10-year plan. Then it crashed and burned, partly because of how Microsoft handled contractors, cycling them in and out constantly, losing momentum, and basically sabotaging its own development. Or take Starfield. That game was hyped as Bethesda's next big thing, the start of a new universe. But now, it's sitting with barely 4,000 concurrent players on Steam. Forgotten. Even the hardcore Bethesda fans have checked out, mostly because there's no communication about what comes next. You want more examples? Let's talk Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, or Multiverse Versus, or Concord. All these games built around live service models, all crashing either at launch or even before they hit shelves. And that's not even counting the stuff that got canceled before we ever saw it. The point is, when you see a game like Clair Obscur succeed, not because of marketing budgets or hype machines, but because of actual quality, it really shines a light on what's broken with the current AAA model. And let's not forget the price. This game launched at $49.99. No deluxe edition, no pre-order DLC, no microtransactions, no early access if you pay more nonsense. It's just the game. And it's complete. That alone makes it feel like a miracle in 2025. There are flaws, sure. Some people have pointed out that the lip syncing isn't perfect. Some of the systems, like the bonding mechanic, could be more fleshed out. The exploration in certain areas is a bit more limited, but it gets better and more complex as you go deeper into the game. And most importantly, none of that really matters, because it delivers where it counts. It tells a complete story. The characters are memorable. The overworld is packed with secrets that feel earned, not just checked off a list. The bosses are incredible. The environments are stunning, and it all feels handcrafted. Nothing bloated. Nothing wasted. It respects your time, and it respects the player's intelligence. And that's exactly why so many people are calling it embarrassing for the rest of the industry. Not in a petty way, but in a look what's possible kind of way. Because when small teams with a clear vision are delivering better games than 500-person studios funded by billion-dollar publishers, something's broken. And honestly, it all comes back to the same things Jason Schreier and others have been saying for years. Mismanagement, bloated pipelines, insecure executives chasing trends, and projects that cost way too much because nobody knows what they actually want to make. When those games flop, the devs are the ones who pay the price. With layoffs, studio closures, canceled DLC, or worse. Just look at Monolith. Just look at what's happening at Respawn and EA right now. More layoffs, more confusion. So yeah, Clair Obscur, Expedition 33 isn't just a great game. It's a symbol of what's still possible in this industry when you cut through the noise and focus on the right things. Strong art direction, thoughtful design, an actual story to tell. It's what happens when a small team believes in their vision and executes it without compromise. It's cathartic to play, it's smart, it's focused, and it proves that this industry can still make magic, even if the big players have forgotten how.
Esti tornere marina, esti l'inaki soledad, tona l'ora tovla, alina. Esta surano taki le renoir tonare fuego verso alina ai.
I'm here.
Alright, let's take a second to appreciate just how wild this is, because we're not just talking about a retro re-release here. We're talking about a mid-90s arcade racing classic getting a new life, nearly 3 decades later, with actual quality-of-life updates. Ridge Racer is coming back, and not just to the Nintendo Switch 2, where it was previously announced. It's officially making its return to PS4 and PS5 on June 5th as part of the Arcade Archives 2-line by Hamster. Now, if you're old enough to remember Ridge Racer hitting arcades back in '93, or maybe getting it bundled with your PS1 around 1995, this one's going to hit you right in the nostalgia. It's one of those rare games that people can't agree on when exactly it became the Ridge Racer. Some think of it as a 1993 arcade classic. Others remember it as a PS1 launch title. But one thing's for sure, it helped define the early PlayStation era. But let's be clear, this isn't a full remake. It's not some shiny Unreal Engine reboot. What Hamster's bringing to PS4 and PS5 is a faithful, enhanced version of the original, with a few smart tweaks that make a big difference in 2025. You're getting a new time attack mode, a rewind feature, so you don't have to restart after every mistake, multiple save slots, a quick start option, so you're not stuck in endless boot-up screens, VRR support, to smooth things out and recreate that buttery arcade frame rate. That last one's a nice touch, by the way. Variable refresh rate isn't something you'd expect to see in a retro game, but for racing games like Ridge Racer, that's exactly the kind of feature that helps it feel like it did in the arcade, just without the sticky cabinet and broken pedals. Pricing hasn't been confirmed yet, but Arcade Archives titles are usually super affordable, which means this won't be a full-priced nostalgia tax situation. And if the early YouTube comments are anything to go by, fans are hyped. People are talking about Christmas 1995 memories, playing Ridge Racer until 3 a.m., and now they get to relive that magic with modern comforts. Also worth noting, this re-release is a reminder of just how influential Ridge Racer was. It launched a franchise, defined a genre, and helped the original PlayStation take off. Without it, we might not have gotten the golden era of arcade-style racing games that dominated the late 90s and early 2000s. So yeah, June 5th, mark it down. Ridge Racer's back, and whether you're here for the nostalgia or just want to experience one of the games that helped shape an entire generation of consoles, this is absolutely worth checking out. Alright, so if you've been holding off on upgrading your gaming PC because graphics card prices have been absolutely ridiculous, now might finally be your window. After months, or let's be honest, years, of inflated pricing, it looks like GPU prices in the US are finally starting to cool off. Not totally fixed, but hey, we're seeing progress. Cards like the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5060 Ti and AMD's Radeon RX 9070 are showing up at much more reasonable prices if you move fast. Let's start with the 5060 Ti. It actually comes with more video memory than the more expensive 5070, especially if you grab the 16GB version. That extra memory makes a big difference in newer games. And with support for DLSS version 4, including frame generation, this thing punches well above its weight. One benchmark showed Cyberpunk 2077 running completely maxed out with overdrive ray tracing, averaging around 179 frames per second at full HD. That's nuts. It even ran Indiana Jones and the Great Circle on ultra settings with full ray tracing at medium, and still hit about 138 frames per second. But honestly, if your budget allows, go for the 16GB version instead. It's going for around $530 and gives you way more future-proofing. Now, the Radeon RX 97 has been kind of a mess pricing-wise. It's supposed to retail for around $550, but for months now, it's been stuck near the $800 mark. Now though, it's finally dropped. You can pick one up for about $680 on Amazon. Still above MSRP, yeah, but way more reasonable than before. The 9070 packs 16 gigs of memory. It holds up really well in ray-traced games, and with AMD's new FSR4 upscaling tech, it's a huge step up from earlier generations. In some tests, it even outperformed the RTX 4080 in Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which is wild considering the price gap. As for the RTX 5070, it's still in weird territory. At one point while writing this, a gigabyte model briefly dropped to $610 and sold out almost instantly. Right now, most listings sit around $699. That's a tough sell when the performance is only a notch above the 5060 Ti. So yeah, things still aren't totally normal. GPUs are selling out the second prices dip into semi-affordable range. And between the chip supply issues and the ongoing tariff drama, the market is still shaky, but it's promising. In the UK, GPU prices are already hitting MSRP levels again, which shows it can happen with the right conditions. If you're in the US and spot a deal, don't wait, because once it's gone,
You're special, samurai. Not for your skin, for your skill. Your daimyo does not deserve your greatness.
I am about to kill you, and you praise me?
You have not killed me yet. I have one more trick, but not the strength to use it.
Where did you get that? Sandayu, tell me!
A girl from Iga with the same blade. Trust her. Help her.
Sandayu,